to Vasudev Dutt in comparison. That was his prayer. Let me suffer hellish conditions perpetually, and let all the karma of everyone in the universe come on my head so that they could be liberated. Vasudev Dutt was so detached, especially in this charitable way. Just on a regular day-to-day basis, you could imagine what he was like. If overall he was willing to go to hell forever so that everyone could go back to Godhead. Now, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a sannyasi. And he was really a strict sannyasi. All the details of sannyas he was very, very much adhering to be an example for others. But even Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya, he was worried about Vasudev Dutt. And we read in the Chaitanya Charitamrita how Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat also, Mahaprabhu, he instructed Shivananda Sain to take care of Vasudev Dutta's financial accounts at home. For a simple reason. Vasudev Dutt had a family. And anybody, whoever needed anything, Vasudev Dutt would give him everything. Whatever he had, if he saw anybody in need, he would give it. And he didn't give it in a calculating way. Usually most charitable people are very calculating. Vasudev Dutt would just give whatever a person needed. And if there were a few people, that means he gave everything he had. And he was doing that every day. And he had nothing left. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he told Shivananda Sain that he needs something for himself. I mean, I'm a sannyasi. I have nothing, but I have more than him because people give me donations, Kreshtul of all sannyasis is worried about his grihasta because he's giving everything away. Can you imagine? What a blessing to have God worrying about you. And having his most dear servants taking care of your accounts. He said Vasudev Dutt shouldn't suffer so much because of his compassion. Now, living here in the 21st century in Mumbai, we may think this is quite impractical. And for us, it is. But the spirit and the principle is what we must follow in the footsteps of. The principle is not only practical, it is essential to actually imbibe the Vedic culture and the Vaishnava culture. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said the etiquette of a devotee is is the ornament that makes him beautiful in the eyes of God. And Vaishnava etiquette is about respect to others according to their position. And that respect is always done in a service attitude. As the servant of the servant of the servant. This is what Vaishnava etiquette is about. Being the servant of the servant of the servant and offering all respect according to the time, place, and person. Kala Desha Patra. Now, according to what we have, it's meant to be given to others. If we have knowledge, what is that example I think of? If you have knowledge but you don't share it with others, then it doesn't even it doesn't even have a realistic effect on the person who has it. That's the purpose of knowledge. To serve others. By our example and by our words. If we're not sharing the knowledge we have, then we cannot get realization of that knowledge. And we saw in Srila Prabhupada's example, he had nothing. He would be sitting there in the Bowery, somebody would let him use a little corner of their own one-room flat. There was no dividing. It was just one room. The kitchen, the bathroom, everything was just one room practically. There may have been a little curtain for the toilet, but other than that, it's just one room. Prabhupada's living with some hippie in the corner of the room. And he would invite people to come. And he had nothing. Someone would give him an apple and he would cut it up according to how many people was there and give everyone one piece of apple. And he would give his knowledge. He would give his love, such hospitality. 26 2nd Avenue, he was a sannyasi, but when guests would come, he would cook for them, he would serve them, he would wash the pots for them, he would speak for them, give them knowledge, he would do the kirtan for them, give them hospitality, love, welcome them, everything. If we have wealth, we should understand our wealth is meant to be shared with others. If we have skills, our skills are meant to be shared with others. Whatever God gives us, we can't claim possession of it. It's not mine. Krishna is the intelligence of the intelligent. Krishna is the strength of the strong. Krishna is the ability in men and women. When Krishna entrusts us, it is our responsibility to use it for the welfare of others, like Ranti Dev. Not like Duryodhana, though, except that one instant. Like Vasudev Datta, and like all others. Whatever prestige or honor we may have, even that shouldn't be used to be enjoyed by oneself. If somehow or other in our life we have some prestige or we have some recognition or honor, we should understand, this is not meant for me. God is entrusting this so that this prestige can be utilized to relieve other people of suffering. And Bhagavad Gita explains there's charity in the mode of ignorance, passion, goodness, and then there's transcendental charity. Charity in the mode of ignorance is to give the wrong person, the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong place. Somebody may ask an example. I don't know what it's like in India. Well, I know what it's like in India. I've been here for 40 years. But in an example in the West, you go down streets and people who are homeless, they'll come up to you and say, "Can you give me a cigarette?" That's usually what they ask for, actually. And so people give them. They think that they're compassionate. But this is charity in the mode of ignorance. It's the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time in the wrong place. Or you give them money and they use the money for drugs. That's in the mode of ignorance. You may think that, I'm giving it to them for some food and everything, but if they use it for that purpose, for drugs or BDs or whatever, then actually they're transforming your charity into the mode of ignorance. Charity in the mode of passion is when we're giving it with the desire for prestige, when we're doing it for some material gain. Sometimes the more you give charity, the more people think you're charitable and they'll buy your product, and then you become more wealthy, so it's a good investment. Or you get tax write-offs. Or you get popularity and prestige. That's in the mode of passion. Charity and sattva guna, goodness, is to give the right thing to the right person at the right time in the right place without ulterior motives. Completely unselfishly. Mode of goodness means unselfish. We're really doing it to help someone, and we actually are helping them. But when we give transcendental knowledge, when we give Mahaprasad, when we give the holy name, when we give Krishna, when you add Krishna to charity in the mode of goodness, it becomes transcendental. It becomes divine. It's charity to the body, mind, and soul. It uplifts the heart. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained the highest of all charity is to give people the facility by which they can awaken their love for Krishna. Especially to induce people to chant the holy name.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
So whether it's our temple or Govinda's restaurant or Bhaktivedanta Hospital or Gopal's garden, or any of our homes, or the brahmachari ashram, this is the principle. It's a universal principle that applies to everyone. Hospitality. Where there's Vaishnav hospitality, really loving, concerned desire to make people happy and serve people, to relieve people of suffering, especially when they come to your home or your temple or your place. It opens people's hearts. And factually, Srila Prabhupada's books answer every question anyone can have. The Siddhanta of Srila Prabhupada's books are so practical and so deep and so comprehensive, and so empowered by Radharani, Krishna, and all the previous acharyas. But when people come to our places, whether it's our homes or our temples, and they really feel that genuine hospitality, Srila Prabhupada told us how we should think. Anyone who comes to our temples, we should feel Krishna has sent them here. And how I treat this person is how I treat Krishna. And that's the way we should feel at our homes too. That type of compassion is not a detail. It is one of the most highly emphasized, prominent points of Vaishnav lifestyle, is hospitality. Just the other day during prasadam at lunch, we were reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, and Prabhupada wrote a letter to every temple in the world giving an order that anyone who comes to the temple must get full prasad. He even made the menu. You remember? Puri, sabji, halava. And as soon as people come and eat it, you start making again. And then you start making again and start making again. And he said, if there's anything left over at night, then the brahmacharis can get something. So don't worry about having too much. And that was his logic. It's the spirit that we have to understand, this hospitality. People's hearts melt. They believe the philosophy because they see it in action when they feel the love and the compassion in a devotee's hospitality. So we've put tremendous efforts in this guest reception department with Sankirtan Prabhu and Gokulananda Prabhu. And so many grihastas now are helping. It's extremely important. This is really so much what our temple is here for. So that anybody, whoever, whenever they come, they feel the loving reception, welcoming, and hospitality of the devotees' hearts. And this should extend in every aspect of our lives. In fact, these days, even in business, in some of the greatest experts in analyzing successful businesses, what often breaks or makes a business is their hospitality. People would rather go to a place with good hospitality, where they feel loved and wanted and cared for, than a place where they just get a good product. If you have a choice. It's human nature. Because human nature is everyone essentially wants to be loved and everyone wants to love. And when you love someone, if they're reasonably good people, which most people are, if you show love to someone, they reciprocate and they start to love you. If you show affection, people open up and give affection. You disarm them. You know, there are some bad people who you show kindness to them and they think that you're doing it only to exploit them, and then they'll devise a way to exploit you. But most people, if they feel loved and cared for, they want to reciprocate. And we want to give the charity of pure devotional service. Ranti Dev wanted to free people from suffering. By giving people the holy name, by giving people Prabhupada's books, by giving people a Vaishnava lifestyle, we can actually give them the charity of the body, mind, and soul, by which they never have to suffer again. They can experience Krishna, Krishna's love. There's no greater thing. But to open people's hearts, we really have to feel in our hearts the desire to give them this charity, the need to give them this charity. And very much our hospitality, how we welcome people, how we treat people, is how they're going to open their hearts to receive it. And as this story goes on, we see this idea of charity developing more and more and more. When Vamanadev approaches Bali Maharaj, what was it, on the Narmada River? He was performing this massive yajna, sacrifice. And Vamanadev comes in this little dwarf form of a Brahmin. And he comes, and Bali Maharaj understands. He's an uninvited guest. He's Atiti. He's an uninvited guest. I have to serve him. I have to please him. I have to welcome him. And he was willing to give everything he had without reservation. Did he lose? He gained infinitely more than he ever had before. He gave whatever he conquered after, not an easy thing. We have to read these scriptures putting ourselves in the position of these people. Bali had just, through all kinds of defeats and all kinds of setbacks, finally he did it. He conquered the universe. And now he's about to give it all away, just to keep his promise of giving in charity to an uninvited guest. He lost the material world, but he gained the spiritual world. Sutapa, he got a spiritual planet where Vishnu lived with him. Pure devotional service, eternal fame for Atmanivedanam. And then, in his next birth, temporarily, before he went back to Godhead forever, he was given the position of Indra. So he got it all back. He gave it away, he got the whole spiritual world, and then he got the whole material world back. He had everything. He really had the best of both worlds, as they say. Is there any questions? Yes, Prabhu.
There is a pastime in Ramayana about Ravan had come to take, so to say, as a hog, take fruits and everything from Sita. And Sita, because of hospitality, she gave everything. She crossed that langle and she crossed it and she gave everything to Ravan. And all the problem had happened after that. So what I mean to ask you, Maharaj, was that when somebody comes with a very, very different motivation, and with that motivation he comes and tries to take undue advantage of your hospitality, should we still do hospitality or should we become practical and do the needful for that?
You should be practical and do the needful. Because Ranti Dev and these devotees, they were motivated by compassion. And Sita actually was also motivated by compassion. If she knew he was Ravana, she wouldn't have done it. Yes? But she thought he was a sage. So we cannot fault Sita. She was just trying to do service to a sadhu. But we have to have intelligence. Everything should be done with intelligence. And intelligence essentially means to accept what is favorable for devotional service and reject things that are unfavorable for devotional service. If somebody's coming to exploit us, we should not allow them to exploit us. Charity means hospitality. Doesn't mean you give everything necessarily. Hospitality means you do what's actually beneficial for the person. Yes? If somebody comes to the temple and they say, well, I want Prabhupada's Vyasa-san. This would look good in my bedroom. And the Radharani's crown, that would look good on my wife. And the monkeys on the altar, my children would have fun playing with them. So it's not that Gokulananda says, yes, yes, of course. No, we give them a little prasad, we give them the holy names, we give them kindness. But it can't be done with foolishness. Otherwise it becomes in the mode of ignorance. If we're giving something that could be utilized very greatly by so many people to someone who's going to misuse it. So hospitality doesn't mean you become exploited. Rantidev Rantidev knew who to give what to. If somebody was coming to exploit him, he wouldn't do it. He was giving to people who were actually suffering, and he knew they were suffering, and he wanted to help them. Yes? And this was also Ravana's brilliance. He knew that Sita's hospitality, especially towards sages and Brahmins, was something that he wanted to exploit. It was his brilliance. But ultimately he was destroyed for trying to exploit her goodness. So yes, you should be practical and do the needful. Does that answer your question? You should not let people exploit us for their own greedy, selfish purposes. But we should be trying to uplift people and give people benefit in Krishna consciousness. Yes, Vrishabhanu Prabhu.
Thank you for a fascinating class, Maharaj. I remember reading somewhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam that even if you glare at a guest when he comes, Atiti, then you are sent to the hellish planets where your eyes will be plucked by Ruru birds. Now, as devotees, we may not think so much about it, but at the same time, what do we learn from this kind of statement in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where literally you're scared, that glaring at a guest. Now, we may even glare at devotees at times. I don't know. So what do we learn from this?
Did you ever see a Ruru bird? They make vultures look like parrots. So very, very fearsome birds. And not only they pluck out your eyes, and you go through that whole thing, but then after you go through all the pain of your eyes getting plucked out, then new eyes grow back. And then only for the purpose so that they can pluck them again. Does that answer your question? The Srimad Bhagavatam is giving a principle. It's giving a principle. We should try to live by that principle. And we should try to be in the spirit of a servant, of the servant, of the servant. We should be compassionate. And if someone tries to take advantage of us, of course, we should not allow them to do that for their own selfish purposes. because that impedes us being able to help people who we could actually help. But as far as the glowering of the eyes and all that stuff, we should understand the principle. We should actually make people feel welcome. We should not make them feel uncomfortable and unwelcome. And that's an austerity. Even for invited guests, what to speak of uninvited guests. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you very much.
Yes, Sri Dhamma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, there were two questions. First is, this beautiful story that you mentioned about Duryodhan. It is very bewildering because just few, in the past, he had practically wanted to disrobe Draupadi. So he had done the most horrible thing that a person can do. And here he acts just to follow some principle which, compared to what he had done earlier, appears to be very, very silly, because, it's disrobing a lady, and here he just wants to be a very hospitable person and gives Arjuna. So that's something which is very bewildering, how Shastras portray the same person doing two things which is completely bewildering. There's one thing. And second thing is, sometimes practically on the context of being hospitable, the devotees, they are very cruel to their family members. I mean, the husband could be cruel to the wife just to be hospitable to the guest. So how do we really, balance this hospitable behavior in Grihastha ashram, not causing trouble to the family members?
Which one would you like me to answer? As far as Duryodhana, the way Kshatriyas lived, especially at that time, they had a certain sense of honor. Even Ravana had a certain sense of honor as a Kshatriya. And they lived by those things. Even though they were the most dishonorable persons, there were certain Kshatriya codes that were sacred. Ravana wanted to kill Hanuman. But according to the Kshatriya code, if a person who comes as a messenger, you cannot kill them. He followed that. So Duryodhana, he found every possible loophole, but still there were certain things that he followed. In the Battle of Kurukshetra, when Dronacharya continued the fighting after sunset, that was really a very sinful thing. And he had to die for that eventually. He just got so carried away in his Kshatriya fighting and anger. He broke a very serious rule. So in the sense of Draupadi, and these Kshatriyas like Duryodhana, he was extremely, extremely cunning. And therefore he was, splitting the hairs of the rules and regulations to justify what he did. The fact is that he previously had won Draupadi in the gambling match. Yes? So that means she was his property. She belonged to him. He convinced Yudhisthira to bet her, and he lost. So in that way, even though it was from the humane side of the heart, it was a terribly, terribly cruel, despicable thing he was doing. On a very literal level, he wasn't really breaking the Kshatriya codes because she was his and he could do anything he wanted. He was taking advantage of that. That was his plan. But he gave his word of honor. He gave a vow to Arjuna that he would give him something. And that's something a Kshatriya cannot go back on, even Duryodhana. And he came as a guest in the middle of the night. And to give him hospitality like that is a very cardinal principle of a Kshatriya. On the battlefield, he'll cheat 1,000,000 times. But he'll go around the rules. But hospitality to a guest who comes without weapons, you can't go around. He couldn't go around that rule, and it's a prominent rule of Vaishnava, of Kshatriya behavior. Does that answer that question? As far as your wife, or anybody else's wife, for the husband or for the wife, the husband and the wife and the children are entrusted to you by Krishna. It's your first and foremost service to take care, to respect, to honor, to be kind. If you're unkind to your husband or your wife or your children in order to show charity to others, then you're missing the whole point of the principle that you are entrusted with whatever you have by Krishna to serve those who are coming to you. Yes? So one's wife, one's children, one's husband, especially if they're Vaishnavas. If they're Vaishnavas, it's Vaishnava aparad if you mistreat them in any way. You can't get around that. And even if a person's not a Vaishnava, it's a serious offense to mistreat family members. The idea is the family should be a team in giving charity. But if the teammates are beating each other and misusing each other, then how are they going to win the game? Yes, there has to be unity. And that unity comes through respect, through care, through honoring each other. That's the critical foundation for it to actually be the Grihastha ashram. If Krishna's in the center, Grihastha means Krishna's in the center. Krishna in the center means this is Krishna's daughter entrusted in my care. If I mistreat her, I offend Krishna. This is Krishna's children being entrusted in my care. If I mistreat them, I mistreat Krishna. This is Krishna's son in my care. If I mistreat my husband, I mistreat Krishna. And from that base of the respect within a family, we could actually be charitable in giving, especially in giving pure bhakti to the world. Does that answer your second question? Thank you. One, yes.
Haribol. Thank you for your class, Maharaj. I have a question about practical application. Where we live, my wife and I, we live on the first floor and our landlord lives on the ground floor. And our landlord is not a gentleman by any stretch. He drinks alcohol every day. He complains that his family doesn't allow him to start drinking in the morning, so he begins drinking in the evening. They don't wash their clothes, they don't bathe, they eat meat every day. The not so wonderful smell of their cooking comes up to our house. And every now and again, they come to our house to ask for money for something, such as the electricity bill or some other thing like that. Those are really the only dealings we have with them. But nevertheless, I wonder how one should approach such a person. Should one treat him as an aditi, or should one just deal with him, spending as little time as one possibly can with him? He doesn't really come to exploit us, so that's not so much the issue. It's more the issue of having any dealings with him. I mean, he doesn't exactly inspire one to welcome him with open arms. He's a very, very crude person.
Thank you for that graphic description. That's better than my class, right? Mahat sevam dwaram ahorabo muktes tamodwaram yoshita shangi shangam. The path of perfection is to associate with great souls and render service to them, and to very much avoid intimate association with people who are materially sinful and attached. Who we associate with is what we become. Being kind in hospital and giving in charity doesn't mean we're seeking out association with fallen people. It means when people come to our home, we're kind to them. We give them hospitality. And if a robber comes to steal from you, doesn't mean you just, put a garland on them and say, take whatever you like, Prabhu. We have to be realistic in the application of this principle. It's the heart that is important. So in a situation like that, you can honor Krishna within the core of his heart, but you don't want to associate beyond the necessity to stay in his. You're the tenant, so you could respect and honor Krishna in his heart. An electricity bill you have to pay no matter what. Whether he drinks alcohol or drinks gulab jamun juice. He's your landlord, you have to pay. So just in a situation like that, as Ananda Vrindavan Prabhu said, you just do what's practical and the needful, but you don't want to associate with people who are in a fallen state. You could try to give them Krishna. You can give him prasad. You can pray for him. You could do loud kirtan so he has to listen. Yes?
So there is no reason to invite him inside. Just when he comes to the door, you just give him the check. Thank you very much. Haribol. I mean, we don't
Unless
need to.
you really feel that you could help uplift him. If you really feel and you're confident that you can help to uplift him, then you should try. But if you don't, then you should just do like that. But really hearing means we take it seriously. And what does it mean to take something seriously? It means to apply what we hear without ulterior motives to our life. That's what seriousness means. Serious doesn't mean I'm sitting in class like this with a very serious expression on my face. Anyone can do that. Any Bollywood actor can do that. Seriousness means with all of our capacity, we apply these teachings to our life without ulterior motives. And according to how we take Krishna consciousness seriously, we will advance in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we can follow and follow and follow year after year after year and not make much advancement at all, unless we take the teaching seriously. And Prabhupada didn't want us just to hear. Prabhupada wanted us to love Krishna. So that's why, with tears in his eyes, he would plead with us, I'm giving you everything. Please, just take it seriously. Chant with sincerity. Serve with sincerity. Hear with sincerity. And material nature is set up in such a way that there's enough frustrations and there's enough problems and there's enough reversals for us to really examine the content of our own heart. Am I really taking Krishna consciousness seriously? Is it just some form of entertainment for me? Is it just like a crutch so that I have a religious life and I have some sense of confidence that God will save me despite all my materialistic ways? Or are we actually taking it seriously? That means really, according to our capacity, putting the philosophy into practice. Sometimes people who know so much philosophy, they become so caught up in the intellectual aspect of the philosophy, they don't really take any of it seriously. They just want to know more and more and more. Prabhupada said, even if you just know a few things, the basis of Krishna consciousness, and you take seriously and practically apply it to your life, you will attain perfection. It's guaranteed. It's 100% unconditionally guaranteed by Krishna, by Prabhupada, if we just take these teachings seriously, by trying our ardent best to apply them to our life, without hypocrisy or ulterior motive, we will go back home, back to Godhead. Krishna will dance within our hearts. So on Prabhupada's behalf, we should all be pleading with others to take this bhakti seriously. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much.